For comedian panellists, I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else. I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GBNews.
No spin, no bias, no censorship. I'm Dan Wootton. Tonight, is scheming Sturgeon counting on the pandemic dragging on for support for independence? And are Scots finally seen through her act? I'll reveal why I think the game is up for the wannabe Queen of Scots in my digest before getting reaction from an SNP rep and opening it up to my superstar panel, Rebecca Reid, Calvin Robinson and Dawn Neeson. Are businesses wrong to deprive their employees a Christmas party after almost 2 years of COVID hell? I obviously say yes, but Dame Esther Ranson disagrees. She'll go head-to-head with Christine Hamilton in what's sure to be a feisty clash. What was revealed on day 2 of the Ghislaine Maxwell trial? US broadcasting superstar Megyn Kelly will break down the latest developments, including why Prince Andrew was named in court. As Omicron continues to dominate headlines, is Boris rising to the occasion or being overdramatic? And Whitta Kim reacts to today's big press conference and much more in Big Witty style. We'll be stuck with COVID measures forever unless we stand up and fight for our freedoms. Brendan O'Neill fears so, and he is today's outsider. And the face masks, now a political symbol. I'll put that to my panel in the Media Buzz, where we'll also be asking, was Prince Charles wrong to be curious about his grandchild's skin tone if those disputed royal racism allegations are true? Meghan Markle's father, Thomas, responds exclusively to that. In Uncancelled with Rod Liddle, will Keir Starmer's cabinet reshuffle make a blind bit of difference to his election chances? Plus, we'll bring you the first look at tomorrow's newspaper front pages and we'll crown today's greatest Britain and Union Jackass. This is Dan Wootton Tonight. Let's go. Just one thing before all of that, you better watch out, Boris. Liz Truss is on manoeuvres. The Foreign Secretary here perched on a tank on a visit to Estonia just as her approval ratings skyrocket among grassroots Conservative supporters. Of course, the Prime Minister is a Tory tank fan too, but in a new poll of views of the Cabinet by Conservative Home, it's Liz leading the charge with a rating of plus 82.3, while Boris scores minus 17.2. That's only his second negative rating since his election in 2019. Channeling Margaret Thatcher, pictured here in West Germany in 1986, is only going to cement Liz Truss's status as Tory top dog. So maybe Liz should say thanks to Maggie for the inspiration. My superstar panel coming up shortly. Here they are. It is the former editor, current columnist of the Daily Star, Dawn Neeson, the Conservative commentator, Calvin Robinson, and the journalist and author, Rebecca Reid. We've got a very big show on the way. But first, the news at 9 with Simon Pusey.
Thank you, Dan. Yes, I'm Simon Pusey, and these are your latest news headlines. The Prime Minister says all adults will be offered a booster jab by the end of January and that Christmas parties should go ahead. Speaking at the latest COVID briefing, Boris Johnson confirmed the military will help the NHS with the rollout. MPs also voted in favour of new restrictions, including face coverings in shops and on public transport in England. Travellers coming into the UK also have to self-isolate until they receive a negative PCR result.
There'll be temporary vaccination centres popping up like Christmas trees, and we'll deploy at least 400 military personnel to assist the efforts of our NHS, alongside, of course, the fantastic Jabs army of volunteers.
Boris Johnson speaking there, while the Health Secretary Sajid Javid is urging everyone to get jabbed ahead of the Christmas festivities.
This is a national mission, and we all have a role to play. If we want to give ourselves the best chance of a Christmas with our loved ones, the best thing we can all do is step up, roll up our sleeves and get protected when the time comes.
In other news, 3 students have been killed in a high school shooting in the US state of Michigan. Oakland County Sheriff's Office said the attack happened on Tuesday afternoon at Oxford High School. 6 people are also injured. One of those is a teacher. A 15-year-old has been arrested and a handgun has been recovered. The Justice Secretary says the backlog of court cases is serious and needs to be reduced quickly. Dominic Raab said remote hearings will become part of the new normal and help bring down numbers. By the end of June, there were nearly 61,000 outstanding Crown Court cases and more than 364,000 in the magistrates. A US court has heard claims Ghislaine Maxwell was Jeffrey Epstein's go-to person to handle everything. Lawrence Visosky told jurors at her sex trafficking trial in New York that Maxwell was Epstein's number 2. The British socialite has been accused of recruiting teenagers for Jeffrey Epstein to sexually abuse for 10 years from 1994. She's been in a US jail since her arrest in July last year and denies any wrongdoing. Nearly 17,000 properties in Scotland are experiencing a 5th night without power after Storm Arwen. Engineers are working to restore supply to the northeast and southwestern parts of the country, which have been the hardest hit. Deputy First Minister John Swinney said Storm Arwen was a more significant weather event than the Beast from the East in 2018. And it was a record-breaking night for England women's football team, beating Latvia by an incredible scoreline of 20-0. Before tonight, the biggest victory for the Lionesses was 14-0. In the process, Ellen White became England's all-time leading goalscorer. She's reached 48 goals for her country after bagging a hat-trick in the World Cup qualifier, 1 of 4 on the night. You are right up to date. Now back to Dan Wootton tonight.
If there's one political leader in the UK who I believe should be hoping the Omicron variant leads to further COVID-19 chaos, carnage and, yes, lockdowns, it's Nicola Sturgeon. But in my opinion, the past 48 hours shows why the Scottish First Minister is a political opportunist rather than a serious contender to lead Scotland. And smart Scots, both unionists fed up with her constant divisive separatist rhetoric, and Nats, sick of her loud talk and lack of action, are finally seeing through scheming Sturgeon. The game is up. And I predict, despite her denials, it won't be long before she starts to negotiate some cushy job with her Liberal mates at the UN or World Health Organization. It's so obvious that's what her heart really desires, now that she surely knows becoming the Queen of Scots is a delusional fantasy. Sturgeon must realise independence is no longer a pressing priority for Scottish people who want her failed SNP government to sort out its desperate health system, collapsing ambulance service, spiralling drugs crisis and under-pressure education service. I don't believe in individual polls, but the trend has become overwhelming of late. There's no majority for Scottish independence, not even close. Take last week's YouGov poll for The Times, which said that independence from the UK was 8th in the list of Scottish voters' concerns. Yet Sturgeon still bangs on. Because she knows she has to. Even though there's zero chance of a serious second referendum being granted, given the SNP's cast iron promise the last vote was a once-in-a-generation opportunity. Here she was yesterday at the SNP conference, held virtually because Sturgeon weirdly wants to draw as little attention to it as possible.
I defy anyone to look at the broken, corrupt, self-serving Westminster system that we are currently part of and conclude that it provides a secure basis for the future of Scotland. So I would not be discharging my duty to the people of Scotland if I did not seek to keep the promise on which we were elected, to offer the people of Scotland the choice of a better future through independence. Next year, COVID permitting, as we emerge from winter into spring, the campaign to persuade a majority of people in Scotland that our future will be more secure as an independent nation will resume in earnest. In the course of next year, I will initiate the process necessary to enable a referendum before the end of 2023.
COVID permitting. They're the key words, because I think Sturgeon knows there's a benefit to her in this crisis dragging on. And the Sturgeon we saw most comfortable yesterday was not at the SNP conference, but rather the authoritarian COVID leader at the official governing podium, opining over the control she wants over her people. She reacted with trademark hysteria to the Omicron variant, insisting the Westminster government hadn't gone far enough and that they should immediately fund a new furlough scheme for Scotland. There were demands for Scots to keep working from home, to stay muzzled and to be forced to self-isolate for at least 10 days after daring to go on holiday.
They're asking people, everybody across the country, to significantly step up and increase compliance with all existing precautions. Face coverings, hygiene like washing hands and surfaces, getting vaccinated and of course testing yourselves regularly. We're also reminding people to work from home if possible. I'm asking employers to ensure that they are maximising the potential of home working. Anybody travelling back to Scotland from those 10 countries must enter managed quarantine for 10 days on their arrival. Book a booster for when you are due it. And if you haven't yet had your first or second doses, please book an appointment to get them now.
But I hate to break it to Sturge, COVID is becoming endemic. There's only so long you can weaponise the fear of a virus against your people. And there's only so long you can use COVID to delay your promised 2023 Indy referendum Part 2, which you won't win and won't be officially sanctioned even if you go ahead with your nonsensical plan to hold a vote anyway. I repeat, the game is up. I'll be talking to my superstar panel about this in a moment, but first let's get reaction from former SNP councillor Austin Sheridan. Austin, where am I wrong?
That Nicola Sturgeon is aspiring to be leader in Scotland. She is the leader in Scotland because she, only 7 months ago, won re-election as First Minister with the largest share of the vote that any political party has managed to achieve since devolution. There is a majority in the Scottish Parliament for independence MSPs, the largest we've had since the Parliament was re-established in 1999. But when it comes to the pandemic and how we're dealing with it, I mean, today Westminster MPs have voted through new COVID restrictions that are to be put in place in England. Scotland is taking measures, and these measures are being taken so that we can actually protect the freedoms that we have. We're already seeing in countries in Europe where they are going into lockdown. Scotland isn't going into lockdown. There's nowhere else in the UK going into lockdown. But whether it's Nicola Sturgeon, whether it's Boris Johnson or Mark Drakeford or anybody in the executive in Northern Ireland, politicians are making these decisions on good faith in order to protect the public and to protect our freedoms. So I do feel that it's unfair to criticise them the way that you have done.
Well, I don't. I mean, it seems like
well, you may not.
Kill off.
But Boris Johnson's bringing measures in.
I mean, why is she insisting that anyone from Scotland who goes away should not be able to be released for 10 days? That makes no sense to me. The Omicron variant is here, Austin, already. It feels like she's almost addicted to these controls.
Yeah, I mean, we don't want it to spread. And the reality is we're dealing with a worldwide pandemic. It isn't just happening in Scotland. Nicola Sturgeon certainly isn't controlling, what variants are released. But what we need to do is put in public health measures in order to protect the freedoms that we have. I mean, for myself personally, Dan, I've got a hospitality background. I've got lots of friends that own pubs and nightclubs. So that's an industry, for example, that's been hugely affected. We're now reopened. We're now allowed to have them at capacity. I don't want these clubs to be closed again. But if we don't control the rate of this virus, we're going to end up, potentially having to close these venues again. And that is the last thing that we want. We need to maintain the freedoms that we have already. And the best way to do that, just like Westminster done today, is to bring in measures to
I
control the
don't need
virus.
to maintain any freedoms. The Scottish people don't need to maintain any freedoms. We have our freedoms. And there's no law that Sturgeon can pass to take them away anymore. But Austin Sheridan, I appreciate you putting the case for the SNP. I want to bring in my superstar panel now, the former editor of the Daily Star, Dawn Neeson, the Conservative commentator, Calvin Robinson, and the journalist and author, Rebecca Reid. Dawn.
She's not the only one getting high on power, is she, during this, I have to admit. And it's the same old rhetoric, be good children, otherwise we're going to take Christmas away from you again. It's that constant threat. And I totally, obviously I would, but I totally agree with you, Dan, on the whole, the whole campaign to get independence. I mean, what she's not telling the Scottish people is exactly how much it's going to cost them. Because they're up to their eyeballs in debt at the moment, and the amount of debt they have would negate them getting into the EU in any case. I mean, they're £40 billion deficit.
Well, and they would have to adopt the euro. And Calvin, I think that's one of the key points. Of course, Nicola Sturgeon wants Westminster to grant the furlough scheme again. I mean, she's definitely socialist, verging on communist in a lot of ways these days. And the Scottish budget is completely out of control. So if Westminster's paying for it, she's more than happy.
Well, it's funny, isn't it? Because if she had her independence, she wouldn't be able to afford the furlough scheme. But I don't understand the timing of all of this. So it turns out Omicron might have been around here for a while. It also turns out that it's probably milder symptom-wise to other strains. So why are we going gung-ho for all of these restrictions again, especially in Scotland? I'm off up there for a holiday over Christmas, so I'm worried they might, first of all, might not let me in, but secondly, might not let me leave on the way out.
Well, I mean, she with Andrew Marr in the BBC interview on Sunday was making it completely clear that, if possible, she would like to introduce some sort of public health border between Scotland and England. It's insane. Rebecca Reid, what do you make of Sturgeon's desperate bid to cling to this power and control and introduce ever more draconian restrictions over Scottish people?
I'm not sure that she's any worse than the majority of them. I think the problem is if you become a politician, it's almost always because you like power and you like control. And I think all of them are having this, this is my Winston Churchill moment, I'm going to be the one everyone remembers. And I think a lot of them are really struggling not to center themselves. And I think also so many of them seem to want to be liked. I think Boris is as bad. They want to do something that somebody will say, brilliant, well done, top marks, Nicola. And I don't think any of them are doing it. Nobody is nailing COVID. There is not a country in this world who is getting it perfectly right. But it has made me realise, I know perhaps it should have been obvious, quite how much politicians seem to love power.
But Dawn, this is quite an interesting thing, isn't it? Her poll ratings skyrocketed at the height of the pandemic last year. So it's almost like she quite likes the crisis, because for her, that did give her a massive boost in popularity. And also, critically, it gave independents a big boost in popularity, because remember, you've got the Scottish Secretary for the Westminster government saying they're not even going to consider allowing an official second independence referendum until the polls consistently show that 60% of Scots want independence. And right now, it's far, far away from that.
I think this is the only way she can keep this going, isn't it, at the moment? And I think that's exactly what she's doing. And it's as Calvin quite rightly pointed out, the Omicron variant has been here for a while. And Scotland had a mask mandate all over the summer, and their infection rates were exactly the same as us. So it's not the mask mandate in Scotland.
It's like the masks don't do anything.
It's a shock horror. I mean, Germany, a full-blown medical mask mandate over summer, and their infection rates are amongst the worst in Europe. So what the knee-jerk reaction that's going on here? In Nicola's case, I'd say there was definitely an ulterior motive, and it's that grasping onto power.
Of course. What I will say about Nicola, if there's time, is that she said there's hope for Christmas. It's not her job to give us hope or despair about Christmas.
God bless
she has
her.
no right to cancel the birth of Christ.
No, Calvin Robinson, Dawn Neeson, Rebecca Reid, my superstar panel, they are here all night. But what was revealed on day 2 of the Ghislaine Maxwell trial, and is it bad news for Prince Andrew? US broadcasting superstar Megyn Kelly on the way with that. And our boss is wrong to cancel Christmas parties over COVID fears. We've got 2 fantastic guests to debate that. Journalist and broadcaster Dame Esther Ranson and media personality and author Christine Hamilton. I want your views too, though. Dan at gbnews.uk or tweet us at gbnews, where you can vote in our poll. Back in a moment.
It's time to remind ourselves there's always another winter. Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
Good evening. It's been much milder today, but colder air is going to return. Certainly feeling cold in the winds tomorrow. A bit brighter with some sunshine, but there will be showers, and those showers in places likely to turn wintry. This area of low pressure is developing, and as it heads into the North Sea, really producing some strong winds across the coast of northeast England again. And after Storm Arwen hits at the weekend, that is not good news for this part of the world. As well as the winds picking up, there's going to be plenty of rain around. That rain turning heavy at the moment across Scotland. A band of rain will whiz across England and Wales this evening, followed by some very lively showers when the winds will suddenly just whip up. So you may get woken up by the gusty winds tonight. Temperatures dropping down, but generally staying a few degrees above freezing, thanks mostly to the strength of the wind. That wind will be very lively then along some North Sea coasts in the morning, providing plenty of showers here as well. Some of those could be of hail, rain showers for Wales, southwest England, and the showers turning more and more wintry over northern Scotland as the day goes on. But there will be sunny spells, and there's going to be a cold feel to the day. Temperatures back to single figures, and add on that wind, it feels even colder. Certainly getting pretty cold on Wednesday evening, with further snow likely over northern Scotland, and then the potential through tomorrow evening for a mixture of rain, sleet and some snow to push south over southwest Scotland, northwest England into parts of Wales. So in this zone you may wake up to a covering on Thursday morning. The potential for things to turn icy as well, because as the winds ease, temperatures will drop further. So it's a cold start to Thursday. Could be some ice around and still some snow mixed in as this weather system trickles south across Wales into southwest England on Thursday morning. So again, may wake up to a covering in places here. Generally a fine sunny day on Thursday, but it will be cold, but those winds at least will be a little bit lighter.
Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of 2 wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else. I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Time now for The Clash. Today, gloomy government advisor Jenny Harries stated that people should effectively lock down again and avoid socialising. But hours later, Boris contradicted her, insisting he doesn't want to cancel Christmas parties.
Would more working from home help?
So I think what we've seen is, in fact, that not everybody has gone back to work, and I'd like to think of it more in a general way, which is if we all decrease our social contacts a little bit, actually that helps to keep the variant at bay. So I think being careful, not socialising when we don't particularly need to, and particularly going and getting those booster jabs.
We don't want people to cancel such events. And we think that overwhelmingly the best thing for kids is to be in school, as I've said many times throughout this pandemic. What we're doing is trying to take a balanced and proportionate approach to the particular risk that seems to be posed by Omicron.
Harries' comments were also slapped down by a Downing Street spokesperson, reminding the public that Harries gives advice to the government. She is not the government. After almost 2 years of restrictions on our lives, don't staff deserve to let their hair down? Our reporter Cameron Walker asked the British public what they think.
The emergence of a new Omicron COVID variant has persuaded some companies to rethink their Christmas party plans. But some say this is a bit premature. We don't yet know how much this new variant evades vaccines. So is it wrong to deprive staff of festive cheer for a second year running?
We don't want another Christmas when we're not going out. So if it's not safe to go into the office, it's not safe to go to a Christmas party.
I think if you're already working in an office and the party's going to be in the office anyway, what's the point in cancelling it?
It's probably a good idea, I think, yes.
We've had it for 2 years now. I know we're getting new variants, but it's just going to keep happening. It's never going to stop if we just need to get on with it, I think.
Personally, I'd rather people were safe than sorry. Because you never know who it's going to hit.
Well, I think people have got to be careful, wear masks when they're indoors and take precautions, but I would hope that life can get on as much as normal.
I think we're jumping the gun, but what can they do?
It is a shame because nobody knows how bad the variant is yet. Life should go on really, shouldn't it?
It's probably a good idea under the circumstances, but the new virus, do we know enough about it? Probably not.
My diary gets booked up enough in December anyway.
So our business is wrong to deprive staff of Christmas parties. I say absolutely, but what do you think? Vote now in our Twitter poll at GBNews or email me at dan@gbnews.uk. But to try and settle this, I've brought in two heavyweights, the journalist and broadcaster Dame Esther Ranson and the media personality and author Christine Hamilton. Dame Esther, you say no Christmas parties?
Some of my most worrying and embarrassing memories consist of office parties. And I remember the first one I ever went to when an elderly gentleman who I think was the office messenger was violently sick in the waste paper basket. And I looked around the room and there were the most extraordinary things going on. I mean, I don't know what hashtag Me Too would have made of it. So I was taken away to a nice little place where I could have a drink, whereupon a stripper walked in, whereupon I went home. So I have to say that I love parties, and I have met Christine at some parties, and she and I have had lovely conversations, but I prefer it where actually it's a purely social event. You're there because you want to meet new people, you're introduced to people, there's food as well as drink, which is rather crucial. And if Christmas parties in offices were banned forever, personally, I wouldn't miss them.
But isn't it, Christine, such an important way for bosses to reward their staff for a year of hard work? And I'm sorry, after missing out on last Christmas, there is nothing I want more than a messy office Christmas party.
Well, I shall look forward to being invited to the GB News office party this Christmas.
Oh, it will be messy, I'm sure.
I mean, a lot of people share Esther's horror at the whole concept of a Christmas party, but if you want to go to a Christmas party, I think it's utterly ludicrous to cancel it. It's a massive overreaction. And as one of your people you interviewed, your Vox Pop, said, it's far too soon. We have no idea of the virulence or lethality of this new variant. We simply don't know. At the moment, the numbers in this country who've got it are way below 20. It may go massively up next week, but this is devastating businesses who are having office parties that have been booked, they're having them cancelled, and we have to get a sense of proportion. And, you know, you have one train crash, you cancel the whole of British Rail. You know, it's nonsense. It has to be proportional. And I just think it's a massive overreaction. And I think, you know, people who've worked under very difficult circumstances for 2 years now, because last year's Christmas parties, if their firm wants to throw one, or would under other circumstances, and they want to go, it's terribly important, the camaraderie and the conviviality of an office environment. That's been seriously lacking. And why not, just for a few hours, have a ball, have fun?
Completely.
So I think it's ridiculous.
I totally agree. And David, the issue that I have with Jenny Harries is that this doesn't seem to be an individual that really lives in the real world. And look, a lot of these folk might be brilliant scientists, but they don't understand how normal folk like to live. Because what is necessary socialising? Socialising, all of it is necessary, because that's what makes us want to live. That's what makes us want to get out of bed in the morning. We need to interact with other people. That is necessary.
I agree with you. And I'm sorry to agree with you. I know it's not in my contract, but I'm sorry, I am agreeing with you, because I'm looking forward to Christmas. There's a chance, if this horrible mutation turns out to be as mild as we hope, there's a chance that it will go ahead, and I will meet the 17 members of my family that I haven't seen for ages.
But
I will see the
Christmas
group
is
of
going
friends that I
ahead,
love.
though. Christmas is going ahead. Surely you can't accept that for a second year in a row, the government will somehow stop Christmas happening. Hell no. Christmas is going ahead for me, no matter what Jenny Harries says, no matter what Nicola Sturgeon says, no matter what Boris Johnson says. They are not stopping me celebrating Christmas for a second year in a row.
Can I ask you, Dan, whether you read the piece by the ICO doctor, a woman specialist, talking about the agony, the heartbreak in her life of watching quite young people dying in ICU from COVID. And she was just saying, I don't make judgments about anyone. That's not my role. I don't judge people who smoke. I don't judge people who decide not to have vaccinations, but it's just heartbreaking. And I think we do, as a nation, owe something to these wonderful NHS professionals to take responsibility for ourselves. If your Christmas office party is crucial to you, if it's more important to you than anything else, go ahead. But for me, I want to be with the people I know and love, but that's not necessarily the same as going to that office party.
Christine, on that point, I'm sorry, after 20 months, I'm no longer going to stop living a full life to, quote unquote, protect the NHS. Their job is to protect us. 80% of the country are now double jabbed, 25% and growing are now triple jabbed. Over 90% of British adults have COVID antibodies. This, to me, just feels like mass overreach and actually control now. And I believe, Christine, we have to start standing up for ourselves.
Well, control, you're absolutely right. There are certain people in this country in positions of power who absolutely love to have us all absolutely under their thumbs. They love it. But it's a massive, massive overreaction. We have to learn to live with COVID, even this new variant. And the numbers of people who have actually had it very seriously is very, very small. I mean, out of the entire population of the UK, there have been 10 million cases. Now, some of those have been incredibly mild. And I think I'm right that there's a 1.5% mortality rate, which that's a number of people who've died of that figure. And a very large number of those, let us not forget, were people who were ejected from hospital back into care homes. They were sent out to die. And so I think we have to get this under...
Sorry, Esther, come in. Sorry, Esther, we just lost you.
About 144,000.
Isn't that an awful lot? I mean, we're worried about 15,000 deaths 12,000 deaths from cancer. Isn't that an awful lot of people, particularly if it's a member of your
Esther,
family?
if you read Professor Angus Dalgleish in the Daily Mail today, he says that actually the big issue that's coming is going to be the deaths from lockdown, the missed cancer screenings, the mental health deaths, the heart attacks,
from other things,
the deaths from strokes. And so, yes, of course, any death is terrible, but we have to get some perspective. COVID actually has, at the moment, a 0.2% infection fatality rate. The average age of death is incredibly high. Now, look, I've lost elderly relatives to COVID. I'm not for a single second diminishing the personal losses. But I really feel to carry this on and to start talking about a society where a government advisor can tell me whether or not I'm going to host a Christmas party, I say no, Esther. But final word to you.
The problem is, the worry they have is whether this particular mutation can evade vaccination, and whether all the wonderful scientific work, all the courage that's gone into it's the thing that Boris has done right, isn't it, to roll out this vaccination. If all that's wasted because this new mutation has managed to escape past the vaccination, you know what they say, nobody is safe until we're all safe. And I think that is
incredibly low. The chance of that is incredibly low. If that happens, we'll deal with it again.
If that, in that case, let's completely cancel Christmas. Let's stop everybody going abroad. Let's hole everybody up in their own houses. I mean, let's take it to
and let's become a hermit kingdom, and we'll lock down again. I say no. Enough is enough. Enough is enough. I agree with Christine Hamilton, but I always appreciate the debate. Thank you so much to Dame Esther Ransom. What do you think? Well, Jim on Twitter has written to say 90 million vaccines, and we're still living this life of restrictions. Rockerite says we're having ours early this coming weekend because we know they'll put restrictions on us this weekend. Oh, I'm so sad you have to do that, but I completely understand why you feel concerned. And Brian writes to me to say, I don't want to see them cancelled, but I understand if they are. What happens if they do turn into heavy spreading events? Plus, as someone who has organised these things in the past, I can guarantee there will be people moaning whatever way the company goes. Your verdict is in. 79% of you agree with me that it's wrong for businesses to cancel office Christmas parties, while 21% of you say it's right. Just end them all. Dame Esther Ransom says office Christmas parties should just be banned forever because they're horrible things. Coming up, has Boris fallen foul of Omicron hysteria? The straight-talking Anne Widdecombe breaks down today's briefing in big, witty style. But after the break, what was said about Prince Andrew in court as the first witness took the stand in Ghislaine Maxwell's trial? US broadcasting superstar Megyn Kelly will analyse next.
I think you'll be happy in the future too.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else. I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Time now for the US media superstar Megyn Kelly, host of the must-listen podcast, The Megyn Kelly Show. And breaking tonight, the first witness in the highly anticipated Ghislaine Maxwell trial has told a court that Prince Andrew was among the prominent figures who flew on Jeffrey Epstein's private jet, infamously known as the Lolita Express. Andrew, as we know, has been accused of sexual misconduct relating to Epstein, an allegation he denies. Described in the US as the court case of the century, the sex trafficking trial of the Brit heiress Ghislaine today heard from Epstein's chief pilot, Lawrence Visosky, who flew the paedophile financier for more than 25 years. Maxwell is accused of recruiting and grooming underage girls to give the late billionaire Epstein erotic messages that a prosecutor described as a ruse for sex abuse. Lawyers of the disgraced British socialite say she has been made a scapegoat for the behaviour of a 21st century James Bond. So, Megyn, how has the first day gone for Ghislaine?
Poorly, but, you know, it's sort of the prosecution's turn right now. So we're meant to be on their side, and we'll have to see how things unfold. So the first two witnesses were the pilot of the so-called Lolita Express, though some have denied knowing it was called that. The pilot who said, I was always in the cockpit and the door was always shut and I never saw anything. All I did was fly the plane. I never saw anything. And poor Larry's up there like, oh my God. He basically said he never saw sexual activities, never saw sex toys, never saw anything other than very well-known celebrities, sometimes boarding the plane, but usually he was kept behind a closed door and knows nothing. The prosecution used him to get in a certain photographic evidence and logs of flights and things like that they will need later. I don't think he was so much a witness about, you know, I mean, it's interesting that Prince Andrew was on the plane and Bill Clinton was on the plane. He said Donald Trump, long before he ran for office, was on the plane and so on. They're not making a case against those guys, but it's some flavor, certainly, because their next witness was really the bombshell witness. And it was a woman, girl at the time, who went by the name Jane. The four accusers expected to testify are all going to use pseudonyms, we're told. And so Jane was laying the foundation for how she viewed Jeffrey Epstein. And all of the women, I think, are going to testify that his access to celebrities and people of the caliber, like Prince Andrew, is in part what made them believe he was a legitimate businessman, that it was an honor to be in his presence, that they could trust him, you know, so it does all tie together. But Jane's testimony was awful. And, you know, we'll see what the defense does with her. The defense has made clear they're going to say this is a money grab. She wants to file a civil lawsuit, you know, against the Epstein fund. And she sees, you know, she's got dollar signs in her eyes. They pointed out that Jane is a professional actress these days, and they accused her of doing that in their opening statement yesterday in this trial. But the first person testimonial of Jane, Dan, was terrible for Ghislaine Maxwell. She talked about being 14, a middle schooler in Michigan, which is nowhere near Palm Beach, where Jeffrey Epstein lived. And that Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine were walking along. She was walking her dog, Ghislaine was, while this little girl was at camp learning how to sing. And he saw her, took a shining to her. They struck up a conversation, Ghislaine and Jeffrey, with this young child. And before they knew it, they had put together the fact that she, too, the young Jane, was from Palm Beach. They got her number. And he called her mother and said, you know, I know everyone, you know, I know agents. And, you know, she should come over and, you know, I could really make things happen for her. It's something he repeated to Jane herself. I mean, it's just so clear how this guy, whatever you think about Ghislaine Maxwell, they're making their case. Jeffrey Epstein was a serial predator. That's very clear. And so they got her down to the Palm Beach mansion repeatedly. And this now woman, this happened in, it was 1994, so it's been some time, talked about how he lured her into the pool house, said, follow me, brought her into the pool house. And before she knew it, he had taken off his clothes and was pulling her down on him. And she said, without getting too graphic, it was the first time she'd ever seen a man below the waist. She's a teenager. She was shocked. Just like that, it was over. This is sort of what he did. He did have allegedly have sex with her, depending on the situation, non-consensual sex, meaning rape, with some of these girls. But usually his thing was he wanted them to massage him and then he would pleasure himself in front of them or on them. And that's what she said happened to her. And she provided in great detail. Second time was at Jeffrey Epstein's bedroom, where she said Ghislaine lured her in. The two of them, Ghislaine and Jeffrey, were fondling each other, taking off their clothes. And then she was folded in, young Jane, a teenager, at underage, 14. And so go, sex toys. She said, once every 2 weeks, I was there. They were doing this to me. They had a bizarre relationship with one another. It was ongoing abuse. I was groomed. They take me on shopping trips. Again, the promise of introducing her to an agent to make her a star. I mean, think about it. She's a kid, right? Like you believe that nonsense. And she's lived in fear of him and with shame for many, many years and wasn't going to come forward until he died. Apparently, she was a late arrival to the Jeffrey Epstein accuser train, something that's going to be used against her by the defense. They're going to say, again, it's about money. But boy, oh boy, it was a powerful testimonial. We don't have cameras in the courtroom, so I didn't see or hear it myself, but reading it after the fact, pretty detailed, pretty specific, and pretty jarring.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely horrifying allegations, and it sounds like a heartbreaking story. Megan, legally, I guess the key thing for the prosecution is to be able to prove that Ghislaine was actually involved in these sex acts and involved in the procurement of these underage girls. It sounds like there was a lot of potential very helpful evidence on that front today.
Definitely. This young woman testified that Ghislaine was an abuser, and not just a trafficker of her, not just somebody who helped Jeffrey groom her, take her on shopping trips. She said, treat me like your big sister. She had engaged in sex talk, inappropriate sex talk with her about, having sex with men and what to do, what not to do, that kind of thing. And he sort of facilitated the relationship between this young woman and Jeffrey Epstein, in addition to a direct relationship and direct abuse by Ghislaine. That's what this witness said. I'm sure there's a reason that they led with her. I don't expect the prosecution's case to get stronger after this witness. You lead with your best.
So this was the big
The question
bang.
is whether the jury... Yeah, I think so. Well, we'll see.
Yeah.
But the question is whether the jury's going to believe her.
Well,
right?
and
Because
Megan, I just want to ask you finally about the jury. Because can they really judge this case fairly, given that the vast majority of the jury admitted to knowing about Epstein and having read about the case?
It's an uphill battle. Look, in a lot of cases that are notorious, it's hard to find a jury that's never heard anything about it. But in my experience, most juries can check their pretrial knowledge and be fair. And they'll be admonished many times by the judge that they must do that. But the question is whether we're going to hold, her responsible for her behavior, or are we going to hold her responsible for Jeffrey Epstein's behavior? They've got to prove that she trafficked these girls, that she abused. I think Jane might be the only one who's going to allege direct abuse by Ghislaine, but we'll find out. And so that's what I think, the defense is saying. You can't blame. He's basically said in the opening statement yesterday, she said something like, since the Garden of Eden, people have been blaming Eve for the sins of Adam and suggesting this is not a Ghislaine Maxwell problem. This is a Jeffrey Epstein problem. And we can't take out our frustration that he allegedly killed himself on his girlfriend, partner, and whatever the heck she was to him, Ghislaine Maxwell. So the prosecution's just got to continue to try to make her directly responsible. And then what's going to get ugly, Dan, is each one of these young women has credibility problems. They have had shifting stories. And it's not unusual with sexual assault victims, certainly not with this much passage of time. And that may mean they're lying, or it may mean that they've just forgotten over time because memory's not that reliable. Either way, it makes it hard for the prosecution to prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt. That's their biggest challenge.
Megyn Kelly, host of the Megyn Kelly podcast, with fascinating analysis of what's been described in the US as the court case of the century. Megyn, thank you so much. We'll talk again next week. Coming up, will we be stuck with COVID measures forever unless we stand up and fight for our freedoms? Well, Brendan O'Neill is tonight's outsider. He thinks so. Next, though, as Omicron continues to dominate headlines, is Boris rising to the occasion or being overdramatic? The ever unfiltered Anne Widdecombe speaks up in big witty style in just a few minutes.
It's time to remind ourselves there's always another winter. Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
Good evening. It's been much milder today, but colder air is going to return. Certainly feeling cold in the winds tomorrow. A bit brighter with some sunshine, but there will be showers, and those showers in places likely to turn wintry. This area of low pressure is developing, and as it heads into the North Sea, really producing some strong winds across the coast of northeast England again. And after Storm Arwen hits at the weekend, that is not good news for this part of the world. As well as the winds picking up, there's going to be plenty of rain around. That rain turning heavy at the moment across Scotland. A band of rain will whiz across England and Wales this evening, followed by some very lively showers when the winds will suddenly just whip up. So you may get woken up by the gusty winds tonight. Temperatures dropping down, but generally staying a few degrees above freezing, thanks mostly to the strength of the wind. That wind will be very lively then along some North Sea coasts in the morning, providing plenty of showers here as well. Some of those could be of hail, rain showers for Wales, southwest England, and the showers turning more and more wintry over northern Scotland as the day goes on. But there will be sunny spells, and there's going to be a cold feel to the day. Temperatures back to single figures, and add on that wind, it feels even colder. Certainly getting pretty cold on Wednesday evening, with further snow likely over northern Scotland, and then the potential through tomorrow evening for a mixture of rain, sleet and some snow to push south over southwest Scotland, northwest England into parts of Wales. So in this zone you may wake up to a covering on Thursday morning. The potential for things to turn icy as well, because as the winds ease, temperatures will drop further. So it's a cold start to Thursday. Could be some ice around and still some snow mixed in as this weather system trickles south across Wales into southwest England on Thursday morning. So again, may wake up to a covering in places here. Generally a fine sunny day on Thursday, but it will be cold, but those winds at least will be a little bit lighter.
Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else, I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Welcome back. Prime Minister Boris Johnson today refused to rule out yet another Christmas lockdown as Christmas grows over his hysterical handling of the Omicron variant.
We haven't ruled out anything. I've got to tell you. I think another lockdown of the kind that we've had before is extremely unlikely. I'll be upfront with you about that. But we keep everything under constant review.
To analyse, Anne Widdecombe joins me in the studio. Anne, good evening.
Is it a good evening?
Well,
That's what I ask myself.
Well, to be honest, I'm not going to lie. I've been feeling a mix of anger and despair since that Saturday night press conference. I didn't really know what the point of today's briefing today was. Do you?
I don't know what the point of the measures is. I mean, there's been no proof that I can see that wearing masks is going to be a defence against what I call Omicron, because that's how I was taught to pronounce the Greek letter. I can't see any proof that it's going to be a defence. I tell you exactly what's going on. I know it well from my own days in Parliament. This is the government saying we've got to be seen to be doing something. Because if we don't do anything and it all goes wrong, we will be blamed. So we must be seen to be doing something. Now, what can we do? And they choose what they regard as probably the least intrusive things, like masks in shops, but not in restaurants, etc. But
it doesn't make sense.
There's no rationality behind any of it.
And there's no scientific basis behind it either.
Yeah, exactly. And I was on a train today, and of course now you've got to wear masks on trains, but you don't have to wear them if you're eating and drinking on the train. Eat and drink all the way, don't you?
Did you have a number of cups of tea?
I had a number of cups of tea.
No, it does feel ridiculous, but what I'm angry about is the fact that the government actually tried to stoke the fear in this case, and I think Boris needed to stand up to the doomsday duo, Whitty and Valance, because actually it's not often I praise Joe Biden, but his rhetoric overnight in the US was in stark contrast to Boris. He said, Anne, we don't need to panic. There's no need for new lockdowns, and let's just wait. And I don't know why Boris couldn't have taken the same approach.
Well, I mean, the other thing is, where is this Omicron? It's in South Africa. Are the South Africans in a tiz about it?
No.
No, they're not, because the experience of it is that it only affects people mildly. And the question is not how many people get COVID. That now is no longer the question. The question is how many people get it so badly that they have to be hospitalised, or indeed that, suffer fatality. But that is the question. And the thing which really gets me is we have been reasoned with, we have been threatened, we've been cajoled into having our vaccinations. And now we're being told it doesn't make any difference. You still have to wear masks, you still have to do this, you still have to do that.
And
it is a nonsense.
And even the vaccinated travellers now have to self-isolate until they get a very costly PCR test, which means that travel all of a sudden becomes the domain again for the rich and for the privileged. And I feel like Sajid Javid, when he started as health secretary, said all of the right things. We're going to learn to live with this. I understand the cost of lockdowns. But it feels like, Anne, the moment he's become a minister, and I know you've been there, so tell me what it feels like. The moment he's become a minister, he's become a little bit drunk on the power.
Oh, I tell you what the issue is. The issue is this wretched thing called collective responsibility. And if everybody around you is in a big panic, you can't do Kipling's if. You actually have to go along with a big panic because that is collective responsibility. So I would actually give quite a lot to know what he really thinks of this. I'd like to be a fly on the wall when he's talking to his family or whoever, when he can really say what he thinks, because I think that is what this is about. This is Boris having a panic.
And do you think the government needs to level with us about the vaccines? Because we were initially told 15 million jabs to freedom.
Yeah.
Then we were told that if we all got the double jabbing, we would be allowed to be released. Now it feels like we're talking about a world where potentially you'll have to be jabbed once every 3 months.
Yes, and that is something I'm personally resisting. I've had the 2 jabs. That was fine, and I think we were way ahead of most of the rest of the world, and we have a lot to be proud of in our vaccine programme. But I've said when it comes to the 3rd jab, I've just had an antibodies test. I want to know what my antibodies are before I have yet another jab. And, of course, that's not open to everybody because you have to pay for an antibodies test. And I feel very strongly that we have, I wouldn't say we've been deceived, but they've lost their nerve. The government has lost its nerve. And it's just as well that we haven't got Luftwaffe bombs sort of raining down on us. And, you know, because Churchill, I mean, Boris may be many things, but he ain't Churchill. He really isn't.
Well, there's a need, isn't there, to stay the course, and we never seem to do that. And I worry that this sort of pseudo-science that's been promoted is actually going to undermine the messaging that the government worked on for so long. Because you know, Anne, there are a lot of people, and I don't describe them as anti-vaxxers. I think that's offensive in a lot of cases, but there's a lot of people who are vaccine hesitant, who are worried because this is a new jab, an experimental jab. And if all of a sudden you're saying, oh no, you don't need to wait 6 months now, overnight you can wait 3 months and it's completely safe and don't worry about it. Well, actually, where's the evidence? Where is the evidence to tell us that is the right approach and that is safe? There doesn't seem to be any.
And if you remember, the reverse happened in the early days of Pfizer, when we were initially told that we should have it done in 4 weeks. And it was, no, it's OK, 12 weeks is fine. And nobody could quite understand why there was such conflicting information. Now, to a certain extent, we're learning on the job. And I do allow that for the government. They're learning on the job, same as, you know, the scientists are learning on the job. And they are going to therefore revise advice from time to time. But this does smack of panic.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, we've got a new strain. Well, what the dickens do you expect? You know, viruses do mutate. I mean, that is the law of viruses.
Always going
they
to
mutate.
Totally. Anne Widdecombe, sage analysis as ever. We'll speak again very soon, Anne. Thank you so much. It's 10 o'clock. This is Dan Wootton Tonight. Still to come. Will we be stuck with COVID measures forever unless we stand up and fight for our freedoms? Well, Brendan O'Neill will debate how we can pull ourselves out of this tailspin in The Outsider very shortly. Plus, are face masks now a political symbol? I'll put that to my panel in the Media Buzz. We will also be asking, was Prince Charles wrong to be curious about his grandchild's skin tone if those disputed royal racism allegations are actually true? Meghan Markle's father, Thomas, responds exclusively to that. Will Keir Starmer's cabinet reshuffle make a blind bit of difference to his election chances? Rod Liddle will give his uncompromising verdict in Uncancelled. I can't wait for that. Plus, we're going to bring you the first look at tomorrow's newspaper front pages very shortly. And before the end of the show, we will crown today's greatest Briton and Union jackass. But first, the news headlines at 10 with Simon Pusey.
Thank you, Dan. Yes, I'm Simon Pusey, and these are your latest headlines. The Prime Minister says all adults will be offered a booster jab by the end of January and that Christmas parties should go ahead. Speaking at the latest COVID briefing, Boris Johnson confirmed the military will help the NHS with the rollout. MPs also voted in favour of new restrictions, including face coverings in shops and on public transport in England. Travellers coming into the UK also have to self-isolate until they receive a negative PCR result.
There'll be temporary vaccination centres popping up like Christmas trees, and we'll deploy at least 400 military personnel to assist the efforts of our NHS, alongside, of course, the fantastic Jabs army of volunteers.
Meanwhile, Scotland's First Minister Nicola Sturgeon has updated Holyrood on the latest developments with the Omicron variant. She says overall infection levels have been falling over the last week, but urged caution.
I very much hope that as we do learn more, our level of concern will diminish rather than increase. However, while hoping very much for the best, I think it is prudent at this stage to contemplate and prepare for something that is less positive than that.
Nicola Sturgeon speaking there, and staying with Omicron, and health officials in Brazil have confirmed 2 cases of the variant have been found there. Meanwhile, earlier today, Japan and France also had their first cases of the mutation. 3 students have been killed in a high school shooting in the US state of Michigan. Oakland County Sheriff's Office said the attack happened on Tuesday afternoon at Oxford High Street. 6 people are also injured, one of those being a teacher. A 15-year-old was arrested and a handgun has been recovered. A US court has heard claims Ghislaine Maxwell was Jeffrey Epstein's go-to person to handle everything. Lawrence Vysotsky told jurors at her sex trafficking trial in New York that Maxwell was Epstein's number two. The British socialite has been accused of recruiting teenagers for Jeffrey Epstein to sexually abuse for 10 years from 1994. She's been in a US jail since her arrest in July last year and denies any wrongdoing. Nearly 17,000 properties in Scotland are experiencing a fifth night without power after Storm Arwen. Engineers are working to restore supply to the northeast and southwestern parts of the country, which have been hit the hardest. Deputy First Minister John Swinney said Storm Arwen was a more significant weather event than the Beast from the East in 2018. And it's been a record-breaking night for England women's football team, beating Latvia by an incredible scoreline of 20-0. Before tonight, the biggest victory for the Lionesses was 14-0. In the process, Ellen White became England's all-time leading goalscorer. She's reached 48 goals for her country now after bagging a hat-trick in the World Cup qualifier, one of 4 hat-tricks on the night. You are right up to date. Now back to Dan Wootton tonight.
Time for tomorrow's News Tonight now on Our Media Buzz. First look at the front pages hot off the press. The Eye leads with the news that every adult in England will be offered the NHS booster jab by the end of January, according to the Prime Minister. In a press conference today, Bojo insisted that people should not cancel Christmas parties, family visits or nativity plays. Also on the front page, a jury in Ghislaine Maxwell's sex trafficking trial has heard that she was number 2 in Epstein's hierarchy. In The Independent, PM and scientists clash over COVID guidance. Tensions between Boris Johnson and his advisors burst into the open, they say. The Metro reports Boris Johnson mobilised the army and promised to throw everything at saving Christmas from the Omicron variant by offering every adult a COVID booster within 2 months. And on the front of the Daily Telegraph, new COVID restrictions to last until March next year. Regulations forcing people to isolate for 10 days if they come into contact with someone who has the variant, even if they are fully vaccinated, have been enshrined in law until March 24, which will be 2 years and a day since the first lockdown was announced. Remember that? 3 weeks to flatten the curve? Not surprisingly, a few brave Tory MPs fear a new pingdemic could force people to spend Christmas trapped at home. And they've warned the Prime Minister that the restrictions were putting us on a path towards hell. More on that shortly. First, though, let me bring in my superstar panel, the former editor of the Daily Star, Dawn Neeson, the Conservative commentator, Calvin Robinson, and the journalist and author, Rebecca Reid. Now, Clarence House has been forced to deny allegations Prince Charles is the royal racist who asked about the skin tone of Harry and Meghan's son, Archie. American author Christopher Anderson has made the unsubstantiated claim in his new book, Brothers and Wives, Inside the Private Lives of William, Kate, Harry and Meghan. The spokesperson for Charles, who has reportedly called lawyers over the allegations, said, This is fiction and not worth further comment. Well, Meghan's estranged father, Thomas Markle, gave GBNews an exclusive response to the allegations. He told me earlier today, this new book inferring that Charles was a racist is nonsense. He just asked an innocent question when he asked what colour the baby would be. That's just a curiosity that most people have, and it can never be answered until the birth. When I married Doria and she was pregnant with Meghan, some of our friends asked the same question, and they were not racists. They were just curious. Now, some critics have questioned why Prince Charles would even give the grotesque accusation credence by calling in lawyers. Clemmy Moody, for example, writing in The Sun today, said Prince Charles has sunk to Harry and Meghan's chatty rat level. She went on, Charles should see this latest book for what it is, a money-spinning yarn written provocatively for a royal-obsessed American audience. Prince Charles is 73 and next in line to the throne. He shouldn't be airing his dirty laundry in public. Rebecca Reid, lots to unpack here. I guess the first question is, Was it wrong if Prince Charles actually made this statement anyway? Thomas Markle says absolutely not.
I think, first of all, we should start with the fact that we have absolutely no reason to think that he necessarily did say
No, and
this.
I agree with
It's
that.
completely random guessing. And the thing that frustrates me is that there are so many good, sensible conversations to have about racism in this country. And what Harry and Meghan did is basically go, somebody was racist, guess who? So now we're spending all this time playing who's the racist.
It's a revolting witch hunt.
Yeah, but there are so many sensible things we could be talking about, like black men drop out of university in a higher rate than any other demographic. That's an actual racist problem. Who might be the secret royal family racist is a stupid thing, but I can understand why Prince Charles... I think that Clemmy Moody thing was actually rather unfair, because at the moment, one of the worst things you can be accused of is being a racist, understandably, because it's a very bad thing to be. But of course Prince Charles felt like he had to deny it, because it's a pretty hideous thing to be accused of. And yeah, I do think possibly a conversation might have happened where people said, do you think the baby will be ginger? Do you think the baby will have green eyes? Do you think the baby will have Meghan's skin tone? But I don't think that comes from a place of hatred of somebody of a specific race.
Calvin Robinson, it's interesting, isn't it? Because you've got Thomas Markle, who obviously has been in a similar situation. He's been the Prince Harry. And he said lots of his friends asked the question about what Meghan's skin tone was going to be. Do you agree with Thomas, who says, look, even if these comments were made by Prince Charles, there's nothing racist about it?
Yeah, so I have been the baby in that situation. When my parents got married and when my mother was pregnant with me, of course, my parents and my grandparents and my aunties and uncles were asking the question, you know, how dark or how light is he going to be? Same as they were thinking what colour eyes I would have and what colour hair I would have. I think it's pretty, as Mr. Markle said, curious, not racist. But I think also it's very, very important that Prince Charles sues the pants off this Christopher Anderson, because you cannot let people go around calling you a racist without substantiating it.
Yeah.
Just this week alone, I've been called racist twice. Failed actress Rosanna Arquette and some guy called himself Bishop Swan called me a racist. I can't afford to sue them. So if Prince Charles and people like that can go up there and say, you cannot call people this without any proof.
Why did they call you a racist?
Indeed. Because it shuts down the argument. There's no way you can argue against that. You can't prove that you're not a racist.
Do you not have, do people not feel like you might have something of a trump card, given that you're not a white person, like you would understand racism better than they would?
When white people who perpetuate critical race theory, which tells them that as a white person they are inherently racist and black people cannot be racist, when people who believe in that call me a racist, it kind of defeats their own argument, but they don't see the irony.
I just feel like I'm a bit less qualified to tell someone that they're racist if they were raised by a black parent.
No, because I think it's just as terrible a white person being unfairly accused of racism, isn't it?
Of course it is.
But Dawn Neeson, look, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because by Prince Charles publicly going on the record to deny the allegations, and I will say, by the way, and most people know I've been very across the story and reporting on the goings-on and the machinations behind the scenes of the royal family for some time. I've always been told that it wasn't Prince Charles who made these statements. However, Dawn, by Charles going public, obviously it means the circle of whom did make the comment is closing, because Harry and Meghan had already ruled out Prince Philip and the Queen. Now Prince Charles rules himself out. We sort of know where this is heading, don't we?
Well, we do, but I mean, the thing is, I don't think it was racism. We don't know the context of this conversation, for a start.
I absolutely do not think it was racist for a single second.
No, I don't.
And by the way, I think Harry and Meghan want to damage this particular member of the royal family, and they threw out that grenade.
Yeah, and I've heard similar stories to you, and that it isn't Charles, and I think you and I both know who it probably is that's implied.
Yes.
Not that we're saying on here, obviously. But I mean,
no, because I think it's a completely unfair thing on this member of the royal family, because I do not believe this member of the royal family has a single racist bone
it's not racism to speculate what a baby is going to look like. It's, you know, as Rebecca said, it's like, my husband happens to be ginger, I didn't have children for that reason, obviously. There's enough redheads in the world, as Harry is proving. But I mean,
I love a redhead.
I do too. I think redheads are sexy. But I do get you're married to one, you know better.
But I mean, they're speculating what a child, a much longed for child and grandchild looks like. It's not racist. I think also, it's just natural curiosity. But it does depend on the context in which this alleged conversation took place, obviously.
And of course, we know Harry and Meghan disagreed, didn't they? Even in the Oprah interview, Meghan says, "Oh, there were many conversations." Then Harry comes in and says, "No, there was only one."
But also, they couldn't even agree on that. But by all accounts, the story they told on Oprah is that this was said to Harry, and he went back to their house and told Meghan. And it was an extraordinary decision. If you had heard something racist said about your future child, why would you go home and be like, guess what racism I heard at work today? Why wouldn't you shield your partner from that and deal with them directly?
Because he's the thickest member of the royal family, official.
And it wasn't racist. Look, you've got to feel a little bit sorry for Prince Charles. It has been a tough, long week for him. While batting off these allegations, he has been on royal duty in Barbados to attend quite a downbeat ceremony for him, given this was basically the end of his reign in the country. And there he is, nearly falling asleep. Forgivable, though, because it didn't even kick off until 11:30 p.m. But I do feel his pain. I'm sure he perked up, though, as pop superstar Rihanna was honoured with the title of National Hero of Barbados by the Prime Minister Mia Mottley.
Of a grateful nation, but an even prouder people, we therefore present to you the designee for National Hero of Barbados, Ambassador Robin Rihanna Fenty. May you continue to shine like a diamond and bring honour to your nation by your words, by your actions, and to do credit wherever you shall go. God bless you, my dear.
Well, I guess she's been the Queen of Barbados for some time, and now it's official. You know who I really want to hear from, though, on this whole Harry and Meghan thing? Donald Trump. And guess what? Thanks to our brilliant Nigel Farage, we can. You've probably heard Nigel will be sitting down, or has sat down exclusively with the former president for an interview that's going to air tomorrow night in a 2-hour special here on GB News from 7 o'clock. But here's a little preview of Trump on Meghan.
I'm not a fan of hers at all, and I think she's very disrespectful to the Queen that we just spoke about, who's such a great woman, who's such a great person, historic person. I think she's very disrespectful to the royal family, but maybe most importantly to the Queen.
Oh, look, I've watched the full thing. This is an incredible interview. So make sure you are here on GB News tomorrow from 7 p.m. And then stay tuned with us as well, because we've got a special show with all of the analysis. And Farage will be joining us with all of the behind-the-scenes gossip from Mar-a-Lago as well from 9 till 11. Dawn Neeson, Calvin Robinson, Rebecca Reid, do stand by. We'll be coming back to you very shortly, because next we're asking, are face masks now a political symbol? I've actually got both sides on the panel, so let's see if we can get to the bottom of that question as the media buzz continues. Also on the way, what will it take for us to break the never-ending cycle of COVID restrictions? Brendan O'Neill, he's tonight's outsider, and he has some very strong thoughts in just a moment.
It's time to remind ourselves, there's always another winter. Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
Good evening. It's been much milder today, but colder air is going to return. Certainly feeling cold in the winds tomorrow. A bit brighter with some sunshine, but there will be showers, and those showers in places likely to turn wintry. This area of low pressure is developing, and as it heads into the North Sea, really producing some strong winds across the coast of northeast England again. And after Storm Arwen hits at the weekend, that is not good news for this part of the world. As well as the winds picking up, there's going to be plenty of rain around. That rain turning heavy at the moment across Scotland. A band of rain will whiz across England and Wales this evening, followed by some very lively showers when the winds will suddenly just whip up. So you may get woken up by the gusty winds tonight. Temperatures dropping down, but generally staying a few degrees above freezing, thanks mostly to the strength of the wind. That wind will be very lively then along some North Sea coasts in the morning, providing plenty of showers here as well. Some of those could be of hail, rain showers for Wales, southwest England, and the showers turning more and more wintry over northern Scotland as the day goes on. But there will be sunny spells, and There's going to be a cold feel to the day. Temperatures back to single figures, and add on that wind, it feels even colder. Certainly getting pretty cold on Wednesday evening, with further snow likely over northern Scotland, and then the potential through tomorrow evening for a mixture of rain, sleet and some snow to push south over southwest Scotland, northwest England into parts of Wales. So in this zone you may wake up to a covering on Thursday morning. The potential for things to turn icy as well, because as the winds ease, temperatures will drop further. So it's a cold start to Thursday. Could be some ice around and still some snow mixed in as this weather system trickles south across Wales into southwest England on Thursday morning. So again, may wake up to a covering in places here. Generally a fine sunny day on Thursday, but it will be cold, but those winds at least will be a little bit lighter.
Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else. I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
If you're engaged, could you...
We're back. Rod Liddell on the Labour reshuffle shortly. But first, nobody knows for certain if the Omicron variant is more transmissible or, crucially, if it evades the vaccines. Yet, like clockwork, hysteria is mounting with quick-fire restrictions put in place. Today, MPs overwhelmingly approved new regulations in England that make it compulsory to wear a face mask on public transport, shops, and most places inside, actually, voting 434 to 23. Shameful, shame on them. But Conservative MP Steve Baker's outrage was palpable. And you know what? I actually think the vote was worth it for this impassioned plea in the House of Commons alone.
This situation that we face in today's debate, it's not really about face coverings. To me, it's not really about this issue of the coming pandemic through the self-isolation. It's about how we react and the kind of nation and civilization that we are creating in the context of this new disease. I mean, really, what is the relationship between the state and the individual? Are we to be empty vessels, mere automata, things to be managed as if a problem? Or are we free spirits with, for want of a better term, a soul? Yeah, free spirits with a soul. People who deserve a dignity of choice, and the meaning in our lives which comes from taking responsibility. It's possible that meaning in our lives comes from little else. This is a fundamental choice, I would say, between heading towards heaven and heading towards hell. If we continue to react to these fears and uncertainties by taking the authoritarian course without impact assessments, because they're only temporary, you know, then we are embarked on that downward course.
Beautiful words, important words. Brendan O'Neill is tonight's outsider. He joins me now. Brendan, why are most of us, not you nor I, not Steve Baker, but why are most of us, and certainly the vast majority of MPs, accepting this continued assault on our civil liberties?
I find it really worrying. I think we have now landed in the new normal. It looks like this is going to be life going ahead. And the problem is that viruses mutate. That's what they do. There is always going to be a new variant of COVID, well, for the foreseeable future anyway. So if we respond like this to every new variant, then we're going to be locked in this spiral of doom and authoritarianism for a long time. And the thing that's really worrying me at the moment is that I thought we had a deal with the government. The government said, listen, get vaccinated, protect yourself against the virus, and then we'll go back to normal. We held up our side of the bargain. The vast majority of people got vaccinated. The government has not held up its side of the bargain. It hasn't brought us back to normality. It is bringing in new restrictions on a whim, taking away our liberties overnight, and it's betraying what it told us it would do. So I think Omicron represents a really worrying turning point, because it looks like the COVID authoritarianism is now being institutionalized for the foreseeable future.
I think you're completely right. And that's why the point that was particularly powerful, I think, in Steve Baker's incredible speech today was that actually this isn't about, where the mask mandates are in place or what the specific test and trace regulation is. This is specifically about the fact that surely if we're going to learn to live with COVID, it's been up to individuals to make their own choices about what's responsible and what's sensible, rather than the government becoming the true definition of the nanny state.
Yeah, the mask thing in particular makes no sense to me whatsoever. You have to wear a mask in a supermarket and on the train and on the bus, but you don't have to wear it in a crowded pub or in the gym or anywhere else. And by the way, I'm not saying that we should have to wear it in all public places.
No, but it should be consistent.
It's just very... It's symbolic of the fact that this is a very performative gesture, I think, that people are making. And wearing a mask has become a way of saying, well, I'm a good, caring person. I'm socially aware. I'm switched on. And that's what it increasingly represents. But, the point that Steve Baker made that I thought was very important was that the relationship between the individual and the state is being radically transformed. Now, that's been happening for the past 20 months, ever since the first lockdown. And there were lots of debates to be had about whether locking down was the right thing to do. Some people say it was, and some people say it wasn't. But to carry on rearranging the relationship between the individual and the state, even now when more than 90% of Brits have got antibodies of some form or another, that is really shocking, and it shouldn't be allowed to take place. We've got to really start recovering that sense of individual freedom, limiting government power, and getting back to a situation where we are free to make choices and weigh up risks as we see fit.
I absolutely agree. But what do you say, Brendan, to a lot of folk, including people in the Conservative Party who are a little bit uncomfortable about some of the more draconian restrictions, who say to me, oh, look, Dan, it's just a mask. It's just a day 2 isolation test. It's not too bad. This could have been a lot worse, so let's just accept it. What's your message to them, Brendan, about why it's important not to just accept it?
Yeah, I've heard those arguments too. That people are saying these are mild measures in the scheme of things. They're not that bad. In fact, they're not that mild. Some people won't be able to go abroad, for example, to visit family members. Large families might not be able to afford holidays now because you have to pay a lot of money to get a PCR test when you return. So they are having a big impact. But my response to that point is very simple, which is that it's not just the individual restrictions themselves that are a problem. It's the permanent threat of restrictions. It's the fact that COVID rules hang over us like Damocles' sword. It could fall upon us at any moment. And people aren't really free if they have to live in that kind of situation where your liberty could be snatched away from you, where you could wake up one morning and have fewer freedoms than you did the day before. That makes us feel like we're not the masters of our own destiny. We never really know what's going to happen. We can't really see the future or plan our everyday lives. And it's that culture, I think, that's crushing the sense of freedom at the moment. So it's not the restrictions itself, it's the fact that we keep being shunted back into the restricted life. And that's what we've got to wriggle free from and get out of this spiral of doom.
Rousing words from Brendan O'Neill. Brendan, thank you so much for being our outsider tonight. We'll speak again next week. But coming up, is Keir Starmer's shadow cabinet shake-up a case of reshuffling the deck chairs on the Titanic? I think so. Rod Liddle will explore whether the party is on the rise or still dead in the water in uncancelled. But next, as the media buzz continued, has wearing a mask been politicised? My panel attempt to answer that. And we'll have the first look at tomorrow's newspaper front pages. Stay tuned.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else, I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Let's return to tomorrow's news tonight. Now in our media buzz, more front pages have just been delivered. The PM clashes with health officials over new curbs, runs The Guardian, with advisors worried Christmas could be cancelled and no new winter funding for crisis-hit care firms, as the Care Minister is set to unveil a plan to solve the care crisis. And Britain's birds are at risk, with at least a quarter of them on the red list of endangered birds. The Sun leads with that exclusive on the terrifying Sheridan Smith car crash that we spoke about last night. They say a dog walker revealed how he stumbled across the smoking wreckage of her crashed Range Rover and thought someone must be dead. The 40-year-old Tally Star's car was stuck in trees after it veered off the road during a storm in Essex. And the Times leads on the PM pledge for booster jabs for 23 million by next month. Plus, China is now the single greatest priority for MI6, its head has said. But let's continue with the media buzz now with tonight's superstar panel. Former editor of the Daily Star, Dawn Neeson, the Conservative commentator, Calvin Robinson, and the journalist and author, Rebecca Reid. Now, on Saturday, Boris Johnson said this when he announced the return of face masks in the wake of the Omicron variant's discovery.
We will also go further in asking all of you to help contain the spread of this variant by tightening up the rules on face coverings in shops and on public transport.
Since the measures have been introduced, however, we've been able to look at the small print, and that's not quite the case. You've actually also got to muzzle up in takeaways, personal care and beauty premises, vets, post offices, estate agents. Actually, look, you can see it there. The list goes on and on and on. So given we're once again having to cover up our faces virtually everywhere, even though we don't yet know if Omicron is any more dangerous than the variants going around when masks were optional, you can see why folk are choosing not to follow the rules and questioning whether complying is a personal choice. Then there's the smugness from the likes of ITV News. I couldn't believe this earlier tonight. They ambushed and decided to humiliate maskless commuters.
Mind me asking why you're not wearing a mask?
Oh, to be honest, I'd forgotten.
Just because. Do you not want to wear one? No. Do you not think it puts people at risk if you're not wearing one? I don't know. Do you mind me asking why you're not wearing a mask?
Not really.
I've got one.
I mean, these are people standing outside, but regardless, what I would have said to that ITV reporter is get the hell away from me. Calvin Robinson, what's happening?
That's absolutely outrageous. It's none of their business. You know what this is? This is the nudge unit in play right here. We saw the same thing on Sky TV when Sajid Javid asked the reporter to go and get an injection there and then, had a very staged conversation. It's not appropriate for the UK media to be nudging us in the direction of having a medical procedure. It should be reporting. Journalism is about giving us the facts. It's not about making us do what the government wants us to do.
Yeah, I mean, Jordan Easton, where is ITV News actually in terms of doing a proper investigation into the efficacy of masks? We don't see that, do they? They just seem to swallow government propaganda.
Well, quite, and you know, the hideous press briefings that Boris and the brothers Grimm constantly give these days, it's all sort of like all the questions seem to be lock us down harder and faster and make us wear masks and literally hold me down and put a mask on me. I'm shocked at what I've just watched there. If they'd have asked me, I mean, well, I can't be responsible for my actions.
But this sums up our broken broadcast media who are trying to hunt us down and humiliate us if we make personal decisions, very sensible decisions, not to wear a mask, Rebecca Reid.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was some pretty poor journalism, and I think if you're trying to get people to wear masks, that is not the way to do it, because I am not totally averse to wearing a mask, even if it makes me spotty, which I hate. But that just made me want to set my mask on fire. And also, you know, what are you supposed to say? Oh, I'm not wearing it because I have PTSD, because I've been smothered by an abusive partner. Like, that's to clarify, not my story. But, you know, there are people who don't wear it because they genuinely have PTSD.
And it's illegal to ask as well.
Exactly. What I was going to say,
is sacred. It's
Calvin,
private.
is actually, it's a personal choice if you want to be exempt. Yeah. And this bullying, I mean, tell me if I'm wrong, but from everything I understand is that if anyone asks you, all you simply have to say is, I am exempt, and they are actually legally unable to ask you any further questions as to why you are exempt.
Yeah, they're not allowed to ask you if you're exempt. They can remind you or encourage you to wear a mask in their premises, but they're not allowed to ask you why you're not wearing a mask. And I have been in that situation where I've been out and about with people who have had hidden disabilities and or abuse in their past, and there are real good reasons why they're not wearing a mask, but people have pushed them and said, no, you cannot come into the shop unless you're wearing a mask. Why are you not wearing one? People are policing it where they don't need to be and they shouldn't be, and it's the government's fault.
This is the point I find I'm really struggling with this whole mask debate is the division and the hatred, the vitriol on both sides. Got a friend, very briefly, she's got a severely autistic teenage lad. He's a big strapping lad, looks fit and healthy. You would never know he had any underlying issues whatsoever, but severely autistic. And day one of masks being enforced on public transport, he was attacked by someone demanding to know why he wasn't wearing a mask. This caused a major meltdown, completely traumatised him. God knows how long it's going to take to recover. And it's just the hatred this has caused.
I think we've really lost the skill of minding our own business.
Yes.
Well, Rebecca Reid, in my digest last night, I pointed out how actually there are high-profile folk on the left who are propagating this. So we had that LBC hate preacher, as I call him, James O'Brien.
I think hate preacher might be a little bit strong.
Well, I think you'll change your mind when I tell you what he tweeted. He actually equated folk who don't wear masks to the Ku Klux Klan by saying it's ironic, given that these people used to wear hoods. And then we had Jenny Eclair. You know, she's meant to be a comedian. I've never seen her say anything funny ever, by the way, in her entire career. But just saying, maybe you find her funny. I certainly don't. But anyway, meant to be a comedian, saying that when she goes on her intercity train, the journey was today, so folk, let me know if you saw her, she asked for permission to punch anyone in the face who was maskless.
The difficulty is that there is a problem on my side of things, that we do like to feel like we are the good ones and the better ones. And I don't think it's terribly helpful. And I do see a lot of backlash from that on the left as well. I see lots of people being like, this isn't helpful, let's stop. To clarify, I wear a mask at the moment because I've been told to, and because of the reading I've done, it seems like it might do some good, and it doesn't cost me enough to not do it. But that doesn't make me a better person than anybody else who doesn't wear one. It's a choice that I've made, but I don't feel like I'm morally superior for doing it. And I think...
Might be, and even if you were, punching someone in the face doesn't...
Yeah, I know. Well, then I would have lost any of my moral superiority, wouldn't I? But also, even saying jokingly that you want to punch someone in the face doesn't really make you seem particularly lovely.
Because, Calvin, it is the left that want to stoke this division. I am convinced of that.
I'm going to stand up for the left here, because I don't think it is. You know what I think this is? It's not the left's issue, it's not the right's issue, it's the government's issue. Because while we're against each other, people are calling us non-compliers or people calling them mask Nazis. While we're fighting each other, we're not focused on the people that are implementing this tyranny.
Because the government should have made this a personal choice right from the start.
Absolutely.
And lots of people would have done it if it was personal choice.
Well,
lots
exactly,
of people would.
because what I would love to hear from the government, and I thought this was the approach that Sajid Javid was going to take, Dawn, when I had all of that hope, that misplaced hope when he first took the job from Matt Hancock. Because I really thought it was going to become about, here's the evidence, here's what we know, but you make the choice, because we're learning to live with coronavirus, which is going to become endemic into society.
We need to learn to live with it. There is no getting away from that. I mean, even China now, which was really aiming for zero COVID, has admitted that we are going to have to start living with it. But it's they're not giving us the evidence. And why does nobody in those hateful press conferences ever say, if masks are so important, why have they not worked in Scotland, which have mandated masks all through this summer? Why have they not worked in Germany, which had mandated medical-grade masks for people to wear? Their infection rates are worse than ours. Why does nobody ask that question?
Indeed.
No one can answer that.
Indeed. And what I would just say to the left-wingers who are pushing us all to wear these masks, just like I believe it's a personal choice if someone wants to wear a burqa, it's also a personal choice if someone wants to mask up. And I thought, given their political posturing on the former subject, they should feel the same about masks.
Look, it's... I get what the government... they've been caught. They're damned if they did and they're damned if they didn't. I mean, they had to do something, and Boris, as we know, is scared of his own shadow on this. He's scared of the inquiry that's going to come, so he doesn't want any more deaths on his hands at the moment. So I completely understand that. However, give us the evidence and just terrorising
give us the evidence
people.
and give us the choice, absolutely. Now, in just over an hour's time, it will be December. So at that point, that's when I believe the countdown to Christmas can truly begin. Have to give credit to Dawn, by the way, who's come dressed as a little Christmas tree, our gold Christmas tree.
She has not come dressed as a Christmas tree.
Calvin, that is a spectacular
it's Advent now.
Christmas jumper.
Every week on this show, I'll wear a different Christmas jumper for you guys.
Excellent, and that's my Tower Bridge, just down from where I live, just down from where you live.
Exactly. But Rebecca is a gorgeous black
I've worn velvet.
That
counts for something, surely.
In fact, there's only one person letting this.
Oh, yeah, somebody not wearing a very fancy outfit. Interesting.
Well, I actually have a rule. I can't get Christmassy until the 1st of December.
Is it because you hate Christmas, Dan?
No,
trying to ban Christmas,
Christmas,
trying to cancel Christmas?
I'm so into Christmas, but I've just felt it's a little bit early this year. So 1st of December, I'm going to get into it. But do you know, Santa School is now officially in session. Amateur Chris Kringles attended training at the Ministry of Fun's Santa School in London today before being dispatched to grottos across the country. The group were given refresher courses on how to tackle awkward questions from kids and trained how to achieve a pitch-perfect ho, ho, ho after COVID forced them to go virtual last year. And while there may not be much confidence in the Prime Minister's insistence that Christmas won't be cancelled, perhaps you'll be reassured by the big man in the North Pole who had this message for his assistants.
man. He has phoned and he's sent on his good wishes for today. He said that he hoped that all goes well. And he's confirmed that Christmas is on this year.
Boris Johnson better be listening, or he could go straight onto my naughty list. I don't need some Calvin Robinson, Rebecca Reid. Do stand by, because coming up, my superstar panel will nominate today's Greatest Britain and Union Jackass. But in just a moment, in Uncancelled, Rod Liddle asks whether Keir Starmer's cabinet reshuffle will make a blind bit of difference to his election chances. He'll be here in just a few seconds, but first, here's a look at what's coming up on tomorrow's show.
Coming up Wednesday on a special edition of Dan Wootton Tonight, GB News star Nigel Farage will be here to break down the bombshell revelations from his world-exclusive interview with Donald Trump. And he'll reveal all the secrets from behind the scenes at Mar-a-Lago. Then, one of Trump's top White House advisors, Sebastian Gorka, gives the first reaction from the former president's inner circle. Plus, we'll debate if the Donald can become commander-in-chief again and reveal your verdict. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, airing 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Monday to Thursday on GB News.
I think you'll be happy in the future, too.
Oh, I'm looking forward to that. But first, it is time for Uncancelled, where Britain's top commentators speak out on controversial issues without the fear of the cancel culture sweeping the rest of the media. And Labour leader Keir Starmer has reshuffled his front bench for the second time in 6 months, as I mentioned last night. But his rivalry with Deputy Leader Angela Rayner continues to destabilise the party after her allies criticised the timing of the announcement. Here's some of the key moves. Yvette Cooper, now Shadow Home Secretary, returning to the brief she held under Ed Miliband in 2015. That went well, didn't it? Wes Streeting replaces Jonathan Ashworth as Health and Social Care Secretary, who becomes Work and Pension Secretary. He was demoted. Lisa Nandy has defended the reshuffle, and she will take on Michael Gove as Shadow Levelling Up Secretary. And here's the eye-popping appointment. David Lammy will now take on Nandy's brief as Shadow Foreign Secretary. So is this simply reshuffling the deck chairs on the Titanic, or is it a serious potential future cabinet? One man who is uniquely placed to analyse Starmer's latest attempt to find the winning formula is our megastar columnist, Rod Liddle. Rod, is this going to do the trick? David Lammy as Foreign Secretary, that's the solution.
Yeah, absolutely. That's going to win us all over. I mean, a couple of things. First, the good things. First, he didn't tell Angela Rayner that he was going to do the reshuffle. And I think that was very wise. I wouldn't tell Angela Rayner anything at all, ever, except to say, go away, learn to speak English properly, and learn that not everyone who disagrees with your asinine worldview is scum. So that's what I'd have done with Angela. But a couple of good decisions. Yvette Cooper is a big beast, a good politician, a Brownite, a very capable operator indeed, and she will do very, very well, I suspect. And similarly, Wes Streeting, that is a blow against the left of the party. Wes Streeting was very, very firm when dealing with the outrageous business of having Jeremy Corbyn leading this party.
I think he's good. He's good. He's a rising star.
He's a good man. He's a good man.
Yeah.
But then after that, you were just left thinking, what on earth has happened to our politics? What has happened to our politics when they are the only big names that you can think of who are of any consequence? You think back to the Labour government with people like David Miliband and Ed Miliband and Blair and Brown and so many people of talent, including Yvette Cooper, including Carolyn Flint, for example, who I think is one of the great missed politicians of our age, Jack Straw, Alan Johnson, all really big beasts, along with so many others, Alistair Darling, for example, Douglas Alexander, all very, very capable, very practiced, very intelligent politicians. And I know every generation thinks that the generation before it had great politicians and what's happened to ours now. But you look at the desperate state of the Labour Party front bench and you think, good Lord, I haven't heard of most of these people. The ones I have heard of are awful. What has happened to us? And then the shining moment, the crowning moment, Dan, and you must have been as delighted as I was. David Lammy. This is a man who is now the shadow Foreign Secretary and would be Foreign Secretary under a Labour government. And a man who appeared on Celebrity Mastermind a few years ago. Now, yeah, okay, it's stretching the word celebrity a bit, and it's certainly stretching the word mastermind until it becomes an oxymoron. And this is a man who, on that programme, was asked, the Rose Revolution of 2000 ushered in, got rid of Edvard Shevardnadze and ushered in a new regime in what country? And he said, Yugoslavia, which had ceased to exist 10 years before. Shadow Foreign Secretary, who doesn't know that Edvard Shevardnadze, one of the great lights of post-Soviet policy, of post-Soviet politics, leader of Georgia, of course, didn't even know that. And then better still, you might argue, when asked which woman called Marie won the Nobel Prize for having discovered radium and polonium, answered Antoinette. I mean, this man is now the shadow for. He is that far.
Yeah.
You know, all it takes, because we don't have a very good government, Dan. You know we don't have a very good government. We have a lumbering government which has been behind in the polls. And one day we will wake up and there, flying across the Atlantic on his visit to Washington to meet the president, will be Lammy. And you just shudder.
I know. Well, I know. And that's why, even though, Rod, I have been very critical of this government, you know, you look at the alternative and you just think, no, baby, no. Look, the one thing I'll say about Lammy is that if it means he has to give up his LBC radio show, that's a public service in the world of broadcasting, so that could be a good thing. I am really concerned, though, Rod, as well, about that this seems to be a very Ramona-heavy shadow cabinet. And I feel like Keir Starmer talks the talk when it comes to moving on from Brexit. But actually, when you look at the people who he's promoting, there are people who wanted to overturn the biggest Democratic vote in British history. So Yvette Cooper, she went to great lengths to railroad over the Brexit vote. And David Lammy himself, you know, I think it was literally 3 or 4 or 5 days after the vote, he wrote an editorial for The Guardian saying that there needs to be a second referendum. So I don't like the fact that there's these Ramonas.
It wasn't 3 or 4 days after. It was the very next day. He said we ought to have. It was the very next day.
I just didn't think it'd be that shameless.
Well, it did. I mean, David Lammy's an idiot. I mean, an absolute idiot. And it is shocking to think that a party, you know, which had people like Tony Crossland and Lord David Owen in it, David Owen as Foreign Secretary, Jim Callaghan as Foreign Secretary, could now choose David Lammy.
We need a strong opposition. We need a strong opposition.
And we need a strong opposition.
Government on
that's the point, and we don't have one. And we don't have one from the top down. And I've been a bit sympathetic to Keir Starmer because one can only play with the hands you're dealt, you know? Well, a little, because, you know, I think in many senses his heart is in the right place and he doesn't have much to play with. He has a lamentable team of people, you know, which is why we've still got Angela Rayner as deputy party leader, a woman who finds it genuinely difficult to speak the English language.
Yeah.
So he is in a very, very difficult position. The Brexit stuff doesn't worry me very much. I don't think they're going to do anything on Brexit at all. I don't think that figures, and they know that it's a vote loser in the red wall seats. It's a vote loser north of the Severn Trent line. And while it may gain a few votes in London and so on, there are certain other things which they can do to shore up their vote in the south.
Well, maybe it's just me, Rod, but I can't forgive them for it. I can't forgive Starmer.
No, I don't forgive them for it at all. I don't forgive them. No.
Can't move on from it.
No, I don't forgive them. I just think it is a pretty desperate strait. The sheer paucity of talent. And I have to say, slightly controversially, maybe you might add, that I think MPs should be paid more. Because if MPs were paid a little
we might get some better talent. Rod Little, thank you so much for joining us on Uncancelled. We'll speak again next week. But it's time now to reveal today's Greatest Britain and Union Jackass, my superstar panel. Back with me, Dawn Neeson. Who's your Greatest Britain nominee?
My Greatest Britain nominee is Richard Walker, who is the Managing Director of Iceland, who has said that he is going to focus on long-term recovery of the high street and will not enforce mask wearing in his shops.
Yeah, no, that was a good call. That was a very good call. Calvin Robinson, what about you? Who are you nominating?
My nomination is for Father Ed Meek from Maryland, America, who said, "There is no earthly king, president or tech billionaire who can tell you what to put into your body. Your body is a temple."
And Rebecca Reed, your nomination?
Mine is Virgil Abloh, who was an incredible designer. He died of cancer this week, aged 41. And he was the first African-American head of Louis Vuitton. And he was a working class man who got to the top of an industry that generally favours white people, rich people, privileged people. And I think he's quite an incredible talent.
Well, the winner of Greatest Britain today, Richard Walker, the boss of Iceland. Well done, Dawn. I thought this was a great choice because he's absolutely right. His staff shouldn't have to have anything to do with policing us if we choose not to wear a mask, and it makes it much more likely, by the way, that I'll be shopping in Iceland over the next few weeks. Union Jackass nomination time. Dawn, who are you going for?
Professor Susan Michie, is that how you pronounce her name?
I think it's Mickey.
The BBC,
she's a bit of a Mickey Mouse scientist, so it's quite appropriate, really.
The go-to COVID expert for the BBC, who is only an expert, really, in preaching doom and gloom and wanting to lock us all down in our homes again. Permanently.
Isn't she a
Calvin Robinson, your Union Jackass nominee?
My Union Jackass this week is Sajid Javid. He wants to take the doses for the boosters down from 6 months to 3 months, which means we'd have 4 jabs instead of 2 jabs every year. He wants every person over 18 to get the booster. He's calling the 3rd booster a primary jab now, so the 4th jab is actually a booster. When will this end? When will you actually be fully vaccinated? Can you ever be fully vaccinated?
And Rebecca Reed, your nomination?
Mine is Boots, because they are trying to take the price of the morning after pill from about £8 to about £15. It's a very safe piece of medication which prevents you from ovulating. Very useful if you've had a little bit of an oopsie, and should be easily available. And if you can't afford it, then you probably can't afford to have a baby. So it was the quickest and easiest way to prevent that problem.
Well, it's a double for Dawn today, because clearly the Union Jackass, not just of the day, but of the week, is Susan Mickey. Because if this woman had her way, we will be locked in our homes forevermore. We won't be able to earn money. She's a member of the Communist Party, folks. Just never forget that. Thank you to my fabulous Tuesday superstar panel, Dawn Neeson, Calvin Robinson, Rebecca Reed. We will speak again next week. Thank you so much for your company tonight. Remember, it's a big day on GB News tomorrow. Donald Trump, world exclusive interview with Nigel Farage from 7 p.m. till 9 p.m. Then we're here with all of the best analysis. Thank you for your company. Headliners is next. Good night.
It's time to remind ourselves there's always another winter. Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
Good evening. It's been much milder today, but colder air is going to return. Certainly feeling cold in the winds tomorrow. A bit brighter with some sunshine, but there will be showers, and those showers in places likely to turn wintry. This area of low pressure is developing, and as it heads into the North Sea, really producing some strong winds across the coast of northeast England again. And after Storm Arwen hits at the weekend, that is not good news for this part of the world. As well as the winds picking up, there's going to be plenty of rain around. That rain turning heavy at the moment across Scotland. A band of rain will whiz across England and Wales this evening, followed by some very lively showers when the winds will suddenly just whip up. So you may get woken up by the gusty winds tonight. Temperatures dropping down, but generally staying a few degrees above freezing, thanks mostly to the strength of the wind. That wind will be very lively then along some North Sea coasts in the morning, providing plenty of showers here as well. Some of those could be of hail, rain showers for Wales, southwest England, and the showers turning more and more wintry over northern Scotland as the day goes on. But there will be sunny spells, and there's going to be a cold feel to the day. Temperatures back to single figures, and add on that wind, it feels even colder. Certainly getting pretty cold on Wednesday evening, with further snow likely over northern Scotland, and then the potential through tomorrow evening for a mixture of rain, sleet and some snow to push south over southwest Scotland, northwest England into parts of Wales. So in this zone you may wake up to a covering on Thursday morning. The potential for things to turn icy as well, because as the winds ease, temperatures will drop further. So it's a cold start to Thursday. Could be some ice around and still some snow mixed in as this weather system trickles south across Wales into southwest England on Thursday morning. So again, may wake up to a covering in places here. Generally a fine sunny day on Thursday, but it will be cold, but those winds at least will be a little bit lighter.
Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics